Hey everybody, Nick here. Welcome back to the channel. So in this video, I'm going to talk about the healthcare system, specifically in Canada, but I will talk about the American one as well. Basically, I'll talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly, and share some stories with you regarding the use of the Canadian system, like at the hospitals, emergency rooms. And it's not going to be really a rant, but I am very pissed off with how people have been treated. And it just goes to show you what this place is, this realm. There's always going to be indicators of like what things are making us suffer here, and the medical system, the healthcare system, I should say, is another one of those. And first off, I'm going to also start by saying that taxpayers pay a shit ton of money into the system, okay? Canadians pay a lot in taxes to begin with, and it's millions and millions and millions of dollars upon millions of dollars. And I always wonder, where is this money going to, okay? Now, I'm going to give you an example because I think that's one of the best ways how I can describe going to a Canadian hospital would be. And it hits close to home because it had to do with my mother. And I'm not making this about me at all. This is just an example of how they fail people and how they don't have to face any consequences for it. So my mother had liver problems, and I don't know exactly what she had. She was very secretive when it came to her illness. She was a drinker. From what I understand, she may have had hepatitis. I'm not 100% sure. And this was over 10 years ago now. And I remember vividly when she was telling me about the procedure she had to go through. She had some fluid in her lungs, and she had to go in and get it drained. Okay, I don't know if there was more to it than that. I really don't know. All I know is that she went into the hospital and came out worse. I'm not going to name the hospital. It is one in Toronto in the West End, and I've had experience there as well. From what I understand, they've improved things, but I don't know. I've had friends who had to go there for certain procedures and things like that over the years, and they say it's improved, but they also believe that it was a shitty hospital to begin with many years ago. Anyway, so she went into the hospital, had the procedure. She was supposed to come out within 2 days. It was only going to be like 2-day thing, tops. I spoke to her on the phone. She ended up getting discharged, came home. This was in November, so it was kind of chilly weather. I just remember coming home one day and the heat was blasting. Like, you didn't need to have it at that temperature. Ridiculously hot in the house. I turned it down. But I knew right away something was wrong. Went to see my mom. She was telling me she wasn't feeling good, fever, and just those types of symptoms, like having a flu or something like that. And in hindsight, I probably should have said, let's go back to the hospital, go see the doctor. But I figured it probably didn't have anything to do with whatever she was going through, like why she was at the hospital. I won't say the rest of this because I've talked about this in previous videos, but she ended up dying a couple days later. We had found out that the hospital discharged her and wasn't supposed to be discharged that early. So they made a mistake. They even acknowledged it in a letter that they sent to us after they did the investigation, quote unquote investigation. Now, one thing you have to keep in mind about these hospitals and doctors is they're very well protected by their lawyers, by their, what do you call it? By, with the lawyer's office. I forget the word now. They had a lot of judicial protection from their law firm. That's what I was thinking of. They are lawyered up like crazy. And when they sort of hinted at the fault was sort of on their end, but then they started, kind of like muddying the waters and saying, well, it wasn't really in this and this, there was no way to know. They had to say that to cover their ass. But even if I wanted to pursue any sort of legal action, we wouldn't have won. It's a losing battle, because you'd run out of money before they even get close to running out of any sort of money. Okay? So these medical folks are all protected. I am not saying that all these doctors and medical people, nurses, whatever, are bad and don't know what they're doing on their job. I'm not saying that at all. I'm sure there are a lot of good doctors out there. Okay? I'm positive of that. But this should not have happened, okay? And this is kind of the fault of the medical establishment, the healthcare system. Someone made a very bad judgment call, and this is what happened. I'm no longer obviously trying to pursue anything or anything like that. I'm just simply sharing a story with you. And there's a lot of stories like this. There's a lot of stories, like in the US, a ton more of malpractice. And in the US, here's the difference between the US and Canada. They have a two-tier healthcare system. Canada does not, okay? So in the US, they don't have a two-tier. It's all sort of like, I guess not really a two-tier, but you can pay if you want to, but you also have to have a medical plan. I think there's Medicaid as well. So it's kind of a two-tiered system or a three-tiered system. I don't know exactly what it's called. It's like a multiple, various different ways of getting healthcare in the US. Your company can insure you, you can pay out of pocket, or you can have Medicaid, but you still have to pay out of pocket. I think that doesn't really cover everything. Now, the problem in the US with the US system is that if you don't have any money and you don't have insurance, you're pretty much fucked. Like, it's such an injustice that US is one of the only countries that doesn't cover, like, won't bankrupt you if you need a heart transplant or something that life-saving. People who get cancer in the US, unless you have good coverage, unless you've got a lot of money, you are in deep shit. You're in deep shit. You're likely going to go bankrupt. And it's disgusting to me how one of the supposedly richest countries in the world can't even save their citizens. I'm not saying have a communistic system, which may sound like it, but I think every human should be treated and not have to go bankrupt, should be saved. Their life should be saved. They should have life-saving treatments for cancers, all sorts of things. But it's, as you guys know, it's one big business. It's one big fucking business. And the US pats themselves on the back for that, and they love it. All these rich people love the system the way it is because they can pay out of pocket no problem, okay? Now, Canada's system, everything's covered, and you can have a medical plan if you want, which helps pay for, like, if you need to get immediate, kind of like skipping the line sort of thing. You can do that, but you gotta pay. Generally, it's frowned upon in Canada, I think, but you can do it. Most Canadians who are wealthy, most likely will go to the US because there's just way more specialists and more options, way more options, rather than Canada where it's quite limited. So they'll go to the US and get treatments, see a specialist, or go to Europe or something like that. But I just find that the whole system is failing. It's failing. It's been failing for years, specifically in Canada. People have to wait. I think that I saw the statistics, like 20,000 people die a year because they're waiting for some sort of procedure or treatment or something in Canada. That's a lot of people in a year because the system sucks. They're not building enough hospitals. They're not hiring enough doctors. A lot of people are going to the US to work because they paid more. And some people will say, well, there's not enough money in the healthcare system to begin with. Why are we sending all this money overseas for wars when we could using these billions to build up our healthcare, to build up more hospitals, to hire more doctors, pay them what they're supposed to be getting paid in order to stay? It's insane to me that this is happening. It's insane. I remember I think I thought I broke my ankle a couple of years ago, and I was in Canada. And miraculously, I only waited about 4 hours to get an x-ray on my foot. So I don't know, like sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. There's no consistency with that. Maybe because it was a Sunday, maybe because it was not very busy, I don't know. But 4 hours is not bad wait time to be seen by a specialist or get an x-ray. I don't know, all these millions of dollars get put into the system, not enough money obviously. Is it being wasted? Is it being stolen? I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I just personally think that in this world where so many people are suffering as it is, so many people are having a tough time making it by, imagine you get an illness and you're already just keeping your head above water, or you're barely keeping your head above water financially. You're pretty much fucked unless you have good insurance or a good nest egg. And that's the other thing. In the US, these insurance companies, they don't want to cover what they're supposed to. So many people pay into it off their paycheck, for their medical plan, which whatever company, obviously it differs from some companies to the next. And they don't want to cover this. Oh no, there's a clause that doesn't allow that treatment. Like, they're just fucking around with people. They're messing with people's lives more than most companies. And that's why that guy got offed, the CEO or whatever. I'm not condoning that stuff by any means, by any stretch of the imagination. Absolutely not. That was wrong. I understand why it happened, if that's even really the reason why it happened. But no one should take their suffering into their own hands and take it out on someone. But these companies are screwing so many people. I forget the name of that company, Medicover or something, I forget. But apparently they have a bad reputation. People paying into it and not getting the coverage that they deserve, that they have the right to. It's really sickening. For me, it really takes a psychopathic type of behavior or personality to be able to do that to a large group of people. So whoever's running these companies doesn't care that so many people are suffering. They just simply don't care. It's all about the profit. It's all about the bottom dollar. Whereas in Canada, it's that they just lack the funding, or the money is being mismanaged. They are not investing into the healthcare system in Canada. There's 40 million, just over 40 million people, I think, or 40 something million people in Canada. You need to start increasing the healthcare. And that includes dental. Dental is another thing. Dental is not, you don't get any, until now, but it's like only for elderly people. You get covered by dental, which is like, I don't know what it covers, like up to 10,000 or 5,000. I don't know what it is. I didn't really look into the specifics of the dental plans because I think doesn't cover barely shit. But only now they started to realize dental is important because elections coming up. I think dental is as important as the medical, having a doctor, because that's part of your health. Whatever you're putting in your mouth, things can happen. It's just as important, if not more important. And nope, you've got to pay out of pocket, or you got to have dental insurance. I remember I went to the dentist and I didn't have insurance. And for a root canal and a crown, it was like $3,000 or $4,000 Canadian just for that. Sure, they did a good job. I like the dentist, but that's all about making money as well. And coming to a point which I touched upon just a second ago, getting a family doctor, getting an actual doctor. I mentioned there's very few doctors staying in Canada. And I remember it took me like 3 years to find a doctor when I was still living back in Canada. Insane, absolutely insane. It's incredible. And why is that? Like I said, doctors are leaving to go to the States because they can get paid more. In Canada, obviously they're paid less, but you get people coming from other countries who are doctors in their country of origin. And I remember vividly having a conversation with a cab driver who has a degree, is a medical doctor, speaks English fine, and says he can't get a job in Canada because he's not qualified, he's underqualified or something. I think that they're trying to fix that now, but that was like 8 years ago or something. But that's been a problem that's been going on for a long time. They got people who are qualified. All you have to do to get them fast-tracked is put them through a specific testing to see if they match with the Canadian standard. And you could be having so many more doctors, so many more healthcare professionals. And they just want to work. They just want to make better money than what they were making back home, or as opposed to a cab driver. It's criminal to me. It's absolutely criminal to me. And I remember going to the hospital to visit a friend once. And half the people in there didn't know what the fuck they were doing, it seemed. Like I went in there and I was trying to find information, see where my friend was and this and that. And they just look all lost. Sure, I'm not saying, again, that all doctors are bad and whatnot. It's probably a very stressful job. It definitely is a stressful job. But why aren't they more organized? Why aren't there like some sort of person to keep things more organized? It just always seems like chaos in the hospitals. And it's one of the worst places to go. That's another thing. You always end up, you have to be careful not to get sick when you go to the hospital because there's so many germs and things like that. They need to improve the ventilation, the ways so people don't get sick from others that are there, and masks, let's be honest, it's not 100%, okay? And what's the solution, you ask? Well, less corruption in government, start investing more in the healthcare, specifically in Canada, rather than sending billions over to fight a fucking war, okay? Canadians are getting taxed up the ass already. And it's like you do not get what you pay for in Canada. US, if you got the money, you get what you pay for. I'm not saying the quality is poor. I'm not saying that you can't get a good doctor in the US. But you got to have the paper. Even if you have a really good healthcare plan from a provider, from your company, that doesn't mean that you're going to get covered on whatever it is. There's always some sort of stipulation or fine print that doesn't allow for people to get covered for the things that they're paying for. They don't want people to get the coverage. They just want to take your money. Now, what's the solution overall? Completely and free and utter, for health, like free healthcare for everybody, no matter what status you are, no matter how much money you have. It should be across the board. And then people will say, well, it's got to be paid for. How about all those billions of dollars that the US has sent over the last few years to Ukraine? Where else? To other countries that don't even help, don't even pay their fair share in military and things like that. There's a lot of wasting going on in the US with the money. Now, I'm not saying that Doge is the answer. I'm not even going to go there with that, but I don't think that's the answer. I think that there's just so much mismanagement of money. And I don't think it's going to change. I hate to say it. I don't think it's going to change. I think people are going to continually suffer in the US, suffer in most of the world. Can you imagine what the healthcare is like in third world countries? you get sick, you're pretty much a fucking goner. You know, they don't have even the access to proper medical professionals or doctors and things like that. I'm sure people who have the money in certain spots, certain cities in third world countries and whatnot will have some sort of facilities, and you know, it's not all like bushes and no, you know, hospitals and stuff, but some countries are far worse than the quote unquote Western world, okay? I couldn't even imagine how bad it would be. Europe is not so bad. I've heard in like Western European countries like Spain, France, Portugal, Germany, and you know, I don't think Germany is a Western European country, but whatever. Those countries I've mentioned have pretty good health care providers and medical officers, you know, doctors, hospitals. But the thing is, if you don't maintain it, if you don't invest into it, if you don't use the money wisely, it's going to collapse. And it is collapsing, specifically in Canada. I can tell you that for sure. And everyone says, well, no, Canada has universal health care. Yes, it does, but it's not perfect, okay? It needs to be revamped. I mean, you can see some of the shit that they have. They don't even have enough beds sometimes for people. What if there's another, you know, outbreak of something? They don't have enough. There's not enough, especially in a big city like Toronto. There's just not enough. There also needs to be more care and emphasis on healthy living, healthy eating, to reduce people from getting sick. Now, I won't get deep into that because the powers that be would suppress this crap, but you know what I'm talking about, okay? You get the lobbyists of certain different food companies, and people are getting sicker all the time. The US is probably the most sick country in the world, and that's because of various different reasons. Most medicated as well. I believe they are the most sick. Obviously, you get third world poor countries, and yes, of course, there are very sick people there. But for a Western country, it's sad. It's very sad. I don't know. I can't tell you any more other than what I've said. It's just atrocious what's going on. So many people suffer in those places. It's medieval. You know, can you imagine the medical? Obviously, it's better from 500, but can you imagine what it was like then? My goodness. No anesthesia, chop off the person's leg if you get gangrene. It's like, obviously there's been advances, but the emphasis is that it's not good enough. Let's put it that way. It's just not good enough. And it's bad. And this idiot's beeping. That means the video has to end here. So let me know what your comments are. I'm just sort of all over the place with this, but I had to get it out and talk about it. And yeah, let me know what you think. Do you like your healthcare provider, or is your healthcare system functioning well where you live? Let me know. And as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video very soon. Bye for now.